It was past 9 p.m. on a cold Wednesday evening in Abuja, and I still can't get that image out of my head, him lying there in the gutter, bleeding, barely conscious. I remember thinking, this is Nigeria. People die like this every day, and nobody cares. But what happened next was something I'll never forget. Let me rewind a bit. I'm turned, and I was at the Joby Motor Park that day, waiting for a bus back to Lagos. Life hadn't exactly been kind to me either. I just lost my job at a small logistics company and couldn't afford to stay in Abuja anymore. The only thing on my mind was getting home and figuring out my next move. That's when I saw her. She stood out, not because of her beauty, though she was pretty in a quiet, unassuming way, but because of the way she carried herself. There was something determined about her, despite her worn-out Ankara dress and scuffed slippers. She looked like someone who had seen more than her fair share of hardship but refused to let it break her. I didn't know her name then. I didn't know anything about her. But that night, everything changed. Out of nowhere, we all heard the screech of tires, followed by a loud thud. Everyone turned towards the road. A man had been hit by a speeding car, and the driver didn't even stop. For a few seconds, there was silence. Then the mama started. "Oh, no, oh. Who send cross road like that? People know they look before them walker." Nobody moved. People just stood there, shaking their heads and acting like spectators at a movie. Typical. The girl, Aisha, as I would later learn, didn't hesitate. She dropped her bag and ran straight to him. The man was sprawled out in the gutter, blood seeping from a gash on his forehead. His suit, which looked expensive, was torn and dirty. She bent down and shook him gently. "Oga, can you hear me? Are you okay?" He groaned faintly but didn't respond. "Help me carry him now," she screamed at the rest of us. Her voice was trembling, but there was an edge of desperation in it. Nobody moved. Instead, people stepped back, whispering about how it was dangerous to get involved. She looked around, her eyes wild. "You people just they look. He's dying." I wanted to help, I really did, but fear held me back. You know how it is here. If the man died, the police would come and start harassing everyone involved. I wasn't ready to enter Walla. The girl didn't wait. She flagged down an old cab, practically dragging the man's limp body with her. "Take us to the nearest hospital. Please, I'll pay you," she begged the driver. The driver hesitated, eyeing her suspiciously. "Madam, this one not trouble oh. If he die for my car, no me police go hold." She pulled out a bundle of crumpled naira notes from her bag. "This is all I have. Please, help me." The man grumbled but eventually agreed. They sped off into the night, leaving the rest of us standing there like fools. I don't know what possessed me, but something told me to follow them. Maybe it was guilt for not helping earlier, or maybe it was curiosity. Whatever it was, I found myself hopping on a bike and telling the rider to follow the cab. We arrived at a small private clinic. By the time I got there, she was pacing outside the emergency room, biting her nails. She looked up when she saw me, her eyes filled with a mix of fear and determination. "They said I need to pay a deposit," she said, more to herself than to me. "I don't even know him. What if he dies? They'll arrest me. Why did you even bother?" I blurted out before I could stop myself. She stopped pacing and looked at me, her expression hardening. "Because he's a human being. If it was me lying there, I'd want someone to help." I didn't know what to say to that. We sat on the plastic chairs outside the emergency room, waiting for news. I couldn't help but ask, "You're not from Abuja, are you?" "No," she said quietly. "I came from Lagos 2 weeks ago. I was looking for work." "Why Abuja?" He shrugged. "People say there are more opportunities here." but it's been hard. I've been staying with my cousin, but she's already tired of me." There was a bitterness in her voice, but also a hint of pride. She didn't strike me as someone who liked asking for help. "What about your family?" I asked. "My parents are dead. It's just me." I didn't press further. I could tell she wasn't in the mood to share her life story with a stranger. Hours later, the doctor came out and told us the man was stable. He had suffered a concussion and some minor fractures but would recover. We went into the room to see him. He was lying on the bed, his eyes half open. He looked at us with confusion. "Where am I?" "Who are you?" he asked weakly. "You're in a clinic," Aisha said softly. "You were in an accident, but you're okay now." He frowned, trying to process what she was saying. Then his eyes widened. "My phone. My wallet. Where are they?" She pointed to a small plastic bag on the table. "I kept them for you. Everything is there." He looked at her for a long moment, then said, "Thank you. I owe you my life." She just smiled. "You don't owe me anything. Just get better." The next morning, a sleek black SUV pulled up outside the clinic. Two men in suits jumped out and rushed in. "Sir, we've been looking for you everywhere." The injured man turned to them and said, "I'm fine, thanks to her." "Who is she?" one of the men asked, giving Aisha a once-over. "She's the reason I'm alive," the man said firmly. Then he turned to her. "What's your name?" "Aisha," she said shyly. "Aisha," he repeated, as if committing it to memory. "I won't forget this. Ever." As it turned out, the man was Ayodele, the CEO of a multi-billionaire tech company. When he insisted on giving Aisha a job, she was hesitant. She told him she wasn't educated enough, but he assured her that wasn't an issue. She eventually agreed, and I thought that was the end of the story. But it wasn't. A few months later, I heard rumors about a young girl from Lagos who had become the personal assistant to one of Nigeria's richest men. People said she was lucky, but I knew better. The real twist came when I saw Ayodele on TV one night, being interviewed about his near-death experience. When the host asked if he was planning to marry soon, he smiled and said, "Let's just say there's someone special in my life now." The camera zoomed in on his face, and for a split second, I thought I saw something in his eyes, something that told me this wasn't just gratitude. Could it be Aisha? I don't know. But if it is, then her story is far from over. Months turned into a year, and Aisha's name popped up here and there in the strangest ways. I didn't think much of it at first. Lagos is a big city, but gossip travels fast, especially when it's about the rich and powerful. One day, while I was visiting a friend in Lagos, I overheard a heated argument at a roadside bar. Two men were talking about Ayodele. "You dey hear wetin dem talk about that small girl wey save am," one of them said, taking a long swig of his beer. "Wetin I no go hear? Say she don turn PA overnight. Abeg, that one no be luck. No runs she dey do," the other replied, his tone laced with contempt. I froze. They were talking about Aisha. "Dem say the man dey follow her everywhere now," the first man added. "Private jet, exotic vacations. E be like say the girl jazz am." The second man laughed bitterly. "Jazz? Abeg, no insult the man. Now her good character. Abi no be so dem go talk." I didn't join the conversation, but my mind raced. Was Aisha really just his assistant, or was there more to the story? Curiosity got the best of me, so I started asking around. It wasn't hard to find people who knew about her. After all, she had gone from being a nobody to someone who rubbed shoulders with Abuja's elite. I learned that Ayodele had given her a job as his personal assistant, but he had also sent her back to school. She was studying business administration at a private university while working part-time for him. People said she was different. Quiet, humble, and always dressed modestly, even though she could now afford the best clothes money could buy. She wasn't like the other young women in Ayodele's circle, who flaunted their wealth and connections. Still, the whispers followed her everywhere. Some people said she was his girlfriend. Others said she was just another pawn in his game, someone he was grooming for his own reasons. I finally got a chance to see her again at a charity gala in Abuja. A friend had managed to get me an invitation, and I went mostly out of curiosity. The event was as glamorous as you'd expect: expensive suits, glittering gowns, and champagne flowing like water. I felt out of place, but I couldn't leave without seeing her. And then, there she was. Aisha walked into the room on Ayodele's arm, and for a moment, the entire place fell silent. She was stunning, dressed in a simple but elegant black gown that hugged her figure without being flashy. Her hair was neatly braided, and her makeup was minimal but flawless. People stared. Some whispered. Ayodele, however, seemed unfazed. He introduced her to everyone as his assistant, but the way he looked at her told a different story. I watched from a distance, unsure whether to approach her. She seemed happy, but there was something guarded about her expression, as if she wasn't entirely comfortable in this new world. Later that evening, I found myself standing by the bar when someone tapped me on the shoulder. I turned around and nearly dropped my drink. It was Aisha. "Turned," she said, her eyes lighting up with recognition. "Aisha," I stammered, still trying to process the fact that she remembered me. We talked for a while, catching up. She told me about her job, her studies, and how Ayodele had helped her turn her life around. "He's a good man," she said, her voice soft but firm. "He's done so much for me. I just want to make him proud." I wanted to ask if there was more between them, but I didn't. Instead, I said, "You've come a long way." She smiled. "So have you. You're here, aren't you?" Before I could respond, someone called her name. She excused herself, and I watched as she walked back to Ayodele's side. The night didn't end there. As the gala wound down, I overheard a conversation between two older men in a quiet corner of the room. "Bakir has changed," one of them said, swirling his glass of wine. The other nodded. "That girl. She's the reason. Do you think he's serious about her?" The first man laughed. "Serious? Ayodele Bakir doesn't do serious. She's just a distraction. He'll drop her as soon as he's bored." I couldn't shake their words as I left the event. Was Aisha just another pawn in Ayodele's game, or was there something real between them? And if there was, how long would it last? Months later, I heard something that shocked me to my core. Aisha had disappeared. No one knew where she was. Some people said she had gone back to Lagos. Others claimed Ayodele had sent her abroad for safety reasons. There were even rumors that she had left him, though no one could say why. I tried reaching out to her, but her number was no longer in service. It wasn't until a year later that I saw Ayodele on TV again, during an interview about his company's expansion into new markets. The host asked him about his personal life, and he gave the same cryptic smile as before. "I'm focusing on my work," he said. "But there's someone I'll always be grateful to. She changed my life, and I hope I've changed hers." I couldn't help but wonder, was he talking about Aisha? A few weeks after that interview, I received a letter in the mail. There was no return address, but I recognized the handwriting immediately. "Ton, thank you for everything. I didn't get a chance to say goodbye, but I'm doing fine. Life has taken me in a direction I never expected, and I owe it all to Ayodele. Please don't try to find me. Just know that I'm happy. The letter left me with more questions than answers. Why had she left? Was she really happy, or was this her way of saying goodbye for good? And Ayodele, what role did he play in her disappearance? I may never know the truth, but one thing is certain, Aisha's story isn't over.